jurors come downtown and be present and able and willing to hear the facts of the cases and to make decisions so that people can get answers to their issues that they're facing down at the courthouse. And so I just really appreciate all of you being here. I wanted to let you know that even if you do come down for your jury service and you're assigned to a courtroom, and maybe you possibly never even enter the courtroom doors because you're waiting in the hallway for things to happen and then you get sent home, it might feel like it was all for nothing, but it's not, because sometimes having jurors lined up in the hallway ready to hear a case is what gets the parties talking. And then when the parties start talking, sometimes cases are able to resolve without a trial. And so thank you for being here this morning. And I want to let you know that this morning will be by Zoom. And then if you are qualified to sit as a juror in Bexar County and you don't have an exemption that you wish to exercise, then you will be told where to report in person either tomorrow or on Thursday. And so we need to make sure that everybody that is qualified and does not exercise an exemption is available to come in person either tomorrow or Thursday. And so I'm going to say it a couple of times this morning, but be thinking if there's any time constraint that makes it so that you cannot report in person either either tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, we will need to know that today, because if we don't hear that today, and then you figure out between today and tomorrow or today and Thursday that you can't make it, the central jury room staff cannot excuse you. At that point in time, only the judge of the court that you've been assigned to will be able to excuse you. And so I'll touch more about that later on in the presentation. But to get started, I'm going to be swearing all of you in this morning. The reason for that is because you will be under oath this morning while we're talking about qualifications and exemptions. And then that oath that you take will also apply when you come in person, either tomorrow or Thursday. And the attorneys will have an opportunity at that time to talk to you about any potential biases or issues you might have with a case that would make it so you cannot be a fair and impartial juror. So this morning, the issues we're going to be addressing is whether you're qualified to sit as a juror and whether you have an exemption that applies to you and whether you wish to exercise that exemption. So you're under oath for that conversation. And then the oath also will apply when you come in person and you're talking to the attorneys about the particular case and whether you can be fair and impartial in a particular case. So at this time, I'm going to ask each of you to raise your right hand. Do you and each of you solemnly swear or affirm that you will make true answers to such questions as may be propounded to you by the court or under its directions, touching your service and qualifications as a juror? So help you God.
I do.
I do.
Yes.
I do.
I do.
Yes.
I do. I do. I do. I do.
I do.
Okay, thank you so much. There is nothing quite like 420 I do's on a Tuesday morning. So I really appreciate that. Okay, so just a bit more regarding the oath. So I sit or preside over a juvenile court, but that does not mean that that's the kind of case that you will be hearing if you are assigned to a court. So if when I say that I preside over a juvenile court, that gives you a feeling like I cannot be fair and impartial in a juvenile case because of some issue that you have with a juvenile case, I just want to make sure you understand there's so many different kinds of cases that you could be assigned to hear. So it could be anything from a traffic ticket case, it could be a misdemeanor criminal case, it could be a felony criminal case downtown. There's also civil cases that you may be asked to hear, whether it's a divorce case or a car accident or some kind of complex litigation case, could be a probate, guardianship. I mean, the list could go on and on. So Today, we won't talk about whether you feel that you can be a fair and impartial juror because we have no idea what kind of case you might be assigned to. Today, we will be talking about whether you qualify to sit as a juror and whether you have an exemption that applies to you that you wish to exercise. And so I just want to reiterate one more time, this morning is by Zoom, and then you will be told today where you would need to report in person either tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. And so I will need to know after the presentation this morning, you'll have an opportunity to talk to either me or one of the jury room assistants about whether you have a time constraint that makes it so that you cannot come in person either tomorrow or the day after. Things like if you have a doctor's appointment that you've had scheduled that cannot be rescheduled or that you need to make sure that you attend, and so you can't come in person either tomorrow or the day after, we need to know that. If you have a trip planned today or excuse me, tomorrow or the following day, we would need to know that. If it's later on in the week or maybe early next week, we don't need to know that because they'll deal with that in the courtroom. But if you have a trip planned in the next 2 days, we will need to know so that we can figure out what we need to do regarding your jury service. Also today, we will not be talking about any financial hardships that would come along with serving on the jury. Those issues will be taken up by the judge in the court that you're assigned to. So let's first talk about the qualifications for being a juror in Bexar County. You have to meet all of the qualifications, and if you don't, then we will need to know that this morning. So you need to be at least 18 years of age. If you are not 18 years of age or older, then let us know. You need to be a citizen of the United States and a resident of Texas and Bexar County. You also need to be qualified under the Constitution and the laws to vote in Bexar County. And so this does not mean you have to be actually registered to vote or that you do vote. It means that you need to be qualified under the Constitution and the laws in Bexar County to vote. You also have to be of sound mind and good moral character. This is something that would be diagnosed by a doctor telling you that you are not of sound mind or good moral character to sit as a juror. You also need to be able to read and write. This is really important because a lot of the evidence that's admitted is written evidence, police reports, other kind of reports that would need to come in at trial, letters, things like that. And so we need to make sure that the jurors are able to read and write. Also, you cannot have served as a petit juror for 6 days during the preceding 3 months in a county court or during the preceding 6 months in a district court. Also, you can not have been convicted of a misdemeanor, theft, or a felony, and you cannot also not be under indictment or other legal accusation for a misdemeanor, theft, or felony. And I just want to make it clear, the only misdemeanor that applies here is a theft case. If it's a different misdemeanor case, a DWI or a possession of marijuana or any other misdemeanor case, that does not apply. The only misdemeanor that applies would be a theft case, and then any felony applies. So if those are true, then you're not qualified to sit as a juror in Bexar County. So I would need to know that this morning. Next, I'm going to go over the exemptions. The exemptions are different than the qualifications in that if any of these exemptions applies to you, you can exercise the exemption. We would really appreciate it if you didn't and you stayed and were assigned to a panel and were engaged in the jury service. But if you want to exercise an exemption, then you can. There will be no questions asked and you can be excused from your jury service. So if you are over 70 years of age, you can exercise an exemption. If you have legal custody of a child or children younger than 12 years of age and serving on the jury would leave your child without adequate supervision, you can exercise an exemption. I just want to make sure that you understand that this has to be a child that you have legal custody, not a child that you're babysitting for as a job, but somebody that is your child and that you don't have any other supervision for the child. So if the child is already enrolled in full-time daycare, this would not apply to you. This is a child that you are responsible for supervising, that is your child that you have legal custody over. And if you were to serve on the jury, your child would not be adequately supervised. If you are a student of a public or private school, you can exercise an exemption. If you are enrolled in an actual attendance at an institution of higher education, then you can exercise an exemption. Also, if you are an officer or an employee of the Senate, the House of Representatives, or any department, commission, board, or other agency in the legislative branch of state government, then you can exercise an exemption. And if you are the primary caretaker of a person who's an invalid and unable to care for himself, you can exercise an exemption. And this is the same situation. You must be the primary caretaker of this person, and this person cannot take care of themselves and relies on you for their care. Also, if you were summoned for service in a county, or excuse me, in Bexar County, and you've served as a petit juror in Bexar County during the 3-year period preceding the date that you were summoned to appear this time, then you can exercise an exemption. And if you are a member of the United States Military Forces serving on active duty and deployed to a location away from your home station and out of your county of residence, then you can exercise an exemption. So if any of these apply to you and you wish to exercise the exemption, then obviously you can. No questions asked. You will be excused from your jury service, but we would appreciate it if you still participated. And so next, I'm going to go through some of the COVID protocols that we are using down at the courthouse. And so, like I told you, after today's Zoom meeting, you will be told when and where to report, either tomorrow or the following day. If between now and the time that you're asked to report, you develop any symptoms of illness, we do not want you to come down to the courthouse. We want you to call the court where you have been assigned and let them know what's going on and see what they tell you to do next. So if you have a fever, cough, nausea, sore throat, muscle aches, if you feel malaise or have diarrhea, shortness of breath, vomiting, or a recent loss of taste or smell, if that develops before you are supposed to report, please call the court where you were told to report and let them know that you're having these symptoms and see what they tell you to do. Also, if you are feeling sick or not feeling well, if you are under quarantine for COVID-19, if you've tested positive for COVID-19, or if you've had contact with someone who's tested positive for COVID-19, once again, please do not come down to the court where you've been assigned. Call that particular court and let them know what's going on and see what they tell you to do next. Also, we are working under special order number 72711, which was issued on December 17th of 2021. And this is the order that we use to control the use of masks and social distancing within the courthouse for anybody who's doing any work in the courthouse, and that includes jury service. And so we are using the dashboard to determine when masks and social distancing are required. And currently the dashboard shows that we are at a medium risk level and that things are steady, and that there's a QR code that's going to come up on the screen in a moment. If you want to use that QR code, you can continue to watch to see what the risk level is with respect to COVID-19. And so with the risk level remaining at medium, face coverings are not required, but they are encouraged for all unvaccinated individuals entering the Bexar County Courthouse or the Central Jury Room, or really any of the courtrooms that you are requested to report to for jury service. And also a social distancing of 3 feet is required for in-person proceedings. And I want to make sure that everybody's aware that the particular judge can have more stringent standards in their courtroom. So you could enter a courtroom where a judge is requiring a mask or requiring more social distancing. And if that is the case, then you will be required to follow those more stringent standards in the particular courtroom. And so after the discussion this morning, and if you are qualified to sit as a juror in Bexar County and you do not exercise an exemption, you will be assigned to a particular court. You will receive that information this morning, and you will also receive a follow-up email with all of the information regarding where you need to report and the contact information for that court. And the central jury room and the courtrooms will be disinfected prior to your arrival. There are several hand sanitizing stations located around the courthouse. one of them being at the entrance to the central jury room. And like I told you before, after we have this conversation this morning, you will have an opportunity to talk to either me or one of the jury room assistants to let them know if you have a disqualification, a legal exemption, any health concerns regarding COVID-19, and any time constraints that you may have that will make it so that you cannot report in person either tomorrow or the following day. And this is important. We've had some issues come up, so we want to make sure that if you arrive early, so if you arrive more than 15 minutes before the time that you were asked to arrive, please do not congregate in the hallway outside of that courtroom. There is a cafeteria located in the basement of the Justice Center. There's also like a little outside courtroom area where you can sit, but we don't want you waiting in the hallway. There's a lot of activity in the hallway. The parties are going in and out, witnesses going in and out. We just want to make sure that the jurors aren't congregating in the hallway. Additionally, once you do go up to the courtroom about 15 minutes prior to the time that you were asked to arrive, please wait outside of the courtroom. Do not try to enter the courtroom. When it's time for the jurors to come in, the courtroom staff will come out and let you know that it's time to enter. Prior to the jurors entering, there's often pretrial motions being heard and parties may be conferring, and just a lot of things are going on inside of the courtroom that we don't want the jurors to hear. So if you can wait in the hallway until the courtroom staff asks you to enter the courtroom. And then we are going to have a short video to give you some information about what is going on downtown at the courthouse.
Hello, I'm Rosie Alvarado, local administrative judge of Bexar County, Texas. Your local judges want participants of in-person court proceedings to take part in those proceedings in the safest manner possible. This short video provides an overview of the health and safety protocols implemented in the Bexar County complex. We, the courts, rely on the safety recommendations of the CDC and the San Antonio Metro Health Advisors. We have confidence that these protocols meet the current and best practices to keep all court staff, practitioners, and the public safe during their visit at the courthouse. We look forward to seeing you in court.
Visitors to the Bexar County Court Complex can feel confident the courts are exercising best practices regarding health and safety. Hospital-grade UVC light air sanitizers have been installed in the air handlers in all Bexar County-owned buildings. There are also 74 freestanding hospital-grade commercial HEPA air filters available to use. Foot-operated sanitizer dispensers are available at each building entrance, courtroom entrance, and at elevators. Courtrooms have been outfitted with plexiglass shields and distanced layouts. Courthouse staff are protected by plexiglass shields. Judges may require face coverings and maximum social distancing in their own courtrooms. When entering the building, please maintain social distance protocols. The court complex is comprised of 3 buildings: the historic Bexar County Courthouse, the Kadena Reeves Justice Center, and the Paul Elizondo Tower. The historic courthouse houses the probate courts, the civil district courts, and the civil county courts at law. The Dolorosa entrance and Nueva entrance have stairs. The accessible entrance is through the Heritage Center. The Kadena Reeves Justice Center houses the 4th Court of Appeals, the Criminal District Courts, and the Criminal County Courts at Law. This building has an accessible entrance on Dolorosa. The Paul Elizondo Tower houses the Office of the District Attorney and a select number of courts. This building has 1 accessible entrance on Nueva. Our courts will continue to operate with the most current information and in consideration of the health and safety of our community. We look forward to seeing you.